You have the sheets in front of you, and we're going to follow them, but we're not going to get breaks to go through every single one because that would just add up. So where it reads exercises, you can scribble in here and there a little bit as we go. And we will have Q&A towards the end of this as well. And I'm going to start with what is it exactly that I'm promising with the method. So let me explain to you what this is all about. The first part of it is internal outputs. When I say internal outputs, what I mean by that is things that are just for yourself. Like I mentioned, Procter & Gamble has an internal motto of make a little, sell a little, learn a lot. That's not something they tell the consumers. That's something that's inward facing, not external facing or outside facing. These are things that are just for you to know. What are your roles that you play in your personal and your professional lives, as well as your mission, your vision, your purpose, your MVP, and some words to describe yourself. Those are internal outputs. And then we'll also have some external outputs. So help with your LinkedIn bio, an elevator pitch when you meet someone in an elevator, your email signature. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it can be. And then your story that tells people who you are pretty quickly. So, some ways to think about this sometimes are, what do I know a lot about? If I could pick out the categories on Jeopardy, what would I choose? Sometimes I like to ask myself, I'm like, it's bum, 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 bum. And if it's like, oh my gosh, 90s music, right? Or, 80s movies or whatever it is, you're like, oh, I know a lot about, semiconductors or whatever it is, you're going, oh, I know a lot about this. Because it's so hard to be an expert on anything. I mean, at best, a lot of the time we're advanced. Usually we're beginners. You have to have some humility. But sometimes you're like, no, I'm an expert on that. What's my story? What's my movie pitch if they were going to make a movie about me? This is a story of a boy, or this is a story of a girl who was born in Mumbai, was born in Hong Kong, was born somewhere and came here and did what? What did I want to be as a kid? Maybe not an astronaut or a firefighter, but maybe a little bit after that. My son is 3, so right now he wants to be Spider-Man. And so maybe he will be. I don't want to discourage his dreams. Maybe he will be Spider-Man, who knows? So, and what were my college essays about? I just helped my mom clean out our family home, and I was going through my college essays. That was really interesting to read. It's been so long since I got out of college. What did I think I would do? And again, a 30-year-old knows a lot more about being 30 than a 16-year-old, but still that perspective is helpful to go, where did my heart die? Did I let it die, or am I still keeping it alive in some way, shape, or form? So there are a lot of gimmicks out there for happiness and various things that people purport to do. So I combined 2 of them, took 2 gimmicks and I put them together. That's my gimmick. So they say it takes 21 days to form a habit. There's been research that says maybe it takes a little bit longer. It may not be exactly 21 days, but I was thinking more around 30. And what is 30 days long? Well, a month. A month is about 30 days long. Well, sometimes it's exactly 30 days long. I want to be careful in front of engineers. There was once a computer scientist, this is a true story, he started dabbling in stand-up comedy, and he saw Jerry Seinfeld at a comedy club. And he asked him for advice. Pretty bold to ask him for advice. I've met Seinfeld one time. We were on the same show in New York City. He dropped in. I had to go 3 after him, which was hard. I had to go after Jim Gaffigan and then Seinfeld, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be difficult to do. And Seinfeld's a nice guy. And he said to this computer engineer who was dabbling in stand-up comedy, the key to stand-up comedy is writing. So get yourself a calendar, preferably one that shows the entire year on one page. For every day that you write, mark an X. You'll have some scattered X's and then 2 in a row and then 3 in a row, and something happens psychologically. Your only job is don't break the chain. I began in 2013 using this method, so about 11 years ago, and nothing had ever worked. I would make New Year's resolutions every year, and I would get to January and break them. I wouldn't even get to February, okay? It was like January 10th or so, and I'm like, all right, the gym, we'll try it maybe in February, and okay, I was supposed to balance my checkbook, and I didn't do that either, and I wanted to read this book about my field, and I didn't read that either, and like, I just wasn't doing anything, and it was very, very difficult, and I was very hard on myself, like, how come I'm not able to do these things? I'm motivated, I'm a smart guy, why can't I do it? So in 2013, I started doing this and I missed only 8 days. Out of the whole year, I missed 8 days of the things that I wanted to do. In 2015, I missed 4 days. And by 2016, I missed 0, and I've been on a perfect streak since June 21st, 2015. So 2016 was my first perfect year of doing these, and I'll share with you what I mean by that, of perfection of each of these things. But it's a method that has worked for me. Does it mean it'll work for you? Yes. Sure. But it's all about self-improvement and being the person you want to be. This is one of the quotes that has stayed with me for most of my life, ever since I read it. It's a quote by an Anglican bishop. And I'm not Anglican, I'm not Christian, but I did love this quote. When I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I realized the world would not change. I decided to shorten my sight somewhat and change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I entered my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I sought to change only my family, those closest to me, but alas, they would have none of it. And now here I lie on my deathbed and I realize, perhaps for the first time, that if only I changed myself first, then by example, I may have influenced my family. And with their encouragement and support, I may have bettered my country. And who knows, I may have changed the world. Another way of saying this is, be the change you wish to see in the world. That's really me, by the way. That was me one Halloween. So I feel like that's pretty spot on. I met Ben Kingsley at the Delta Lounge at LAX, and I showed him that, and he goes, that's pretty good. When Ben Kingsley, who played Gandhi in the Best Picture in 1982, tells you you look like Gandhi, I think you look like Gandhi. So kidding aside, that is an important quote. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Now I'm going to throw up an eye chart here on purpose. This was my personal OGSM, my objectives, goals, strategies, and measures when I left Procter & Gamble. I made this document. I wrote 65 pages of what I wanted to be. I left my job, Fiji Water, became a comedian. I wrote 65 pages, and I showed it to my two-up manager from Procter & Gamble, and what did he say to me? You can guess, if you worked at P&G or any of these big companies, you got to get it down to one page. And he goes, you're not going to put 65 pages on your wall. There's no way. Your apartment's not that big, you're poor again. So you're not going to be able to have the wall space. Get it down to one page. And I did. Got it down, and at the end of the day, I said, my strategy is really get gigs and be funny. Isn't that it? Isn't that really what you're trying to do? But I put this up as a bit of a joke because I don't expect everyone to write out something like this, especially for being a stand-up comedian. But I think the internal outputs that become salient here are your purpose, your mission, your vision, your MVP, or in whichever order you would like that. Mission is what you do, purpose is why you do it, and vision is where you're trying to go. These are really hard concepts to understand. They're very simple, but they're not easy. Okay, so there's a big difference between simple and easy, as I'm sure you know. Mission is what you do, purpose is why you do it, and vision is where you're trying to go. What, why, and where. In the words of Simon Sinek, you might have seen his TEDx talk actually, that blew up. He said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I once said to my friend John Waltz, quarter Filipino, at P&G, I said, I want to change the world. This was many years ago. I want to change the world. And he goes, what needs to be changed? I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, that shouldn't be a stumper. You're saying you want to change the world. That's a big thing. You need to try to think about what you want to do. So I came up with some examples here to share with you. All right, so if you're trying to think of your own, right, what is my mission? What is my vision? What is my purpose? You won't be able to nail it here today, probably. Maybe you will. Like my son could be Spider-Man. I don't want to limit you. Maybe you will. So Uber, their mission, we ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. That's big, big mission, right? Just think, oh, well, they're just on my phone. They give me rides. This is high, very high-minded. We ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion and not paying our drivers. They left on it out of the mission. But anyway, they should make you laugh, the mission statements. That's a problem if there's irony in there. TED, very simple. Spread ideas. Boom, right to the point. Hard to get shorter than that. Vision. Vision's a little bit different, right? What did I say? It is where you are going. The Alzheimer's Association does great work. A world without Alzheimer's disease. That's what they want. That's where they are trying to take us. Tesla, to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy and make America great again. I'm not going to get into the political part of it. Elon Musk aside, that's not the point. The point is to focus on this because I really do like the purpose. Okay, it's about taking the parts that you like to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Coke, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness through our brands and actions. Pretty cool. And purpose of Starbucks, right? You think it's just a coffee shop? It is, but also to inspire and nurture the human spirit. One person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Wow, that is bold. And IKEA, come on, we all must love IKEA. We just took our son to a movie night at IKEA. We love IKEA. To create a better everyday life for the many people. Okay, I mean, except when you're assembling it. We've made those jokes, right? I mean, that stuff is really hard. So, for me, I'm going to share mine. So, My mission is to make as many people laugh and think as I can. Right now it's more thinking, this is more of a workshop and sort of session, but hopefully a little bit of laughter to make as many people laugh and think as I can. I want to make people laugh in the room and think on the way home. They can't be thinking and laughing at the same time. If they're thinking, then they're not probably laughing, but hopefully they'll think on the way home. And Chris Rock said this once, he goes, your jokes are not smart if only smart people laugh at them. You gotta make them accessible, right? If you're like, the room's too dumb, you guys are too dumb. It's like, no, they're not dumb. You didn't make your jokes accessible. You didn't meet them where they are, all right? So the other part of this is vision, a world that has been improved by laughter. I believe in that. I believe in the healing power of laughter. I mean, 4 days after my dad passed, my mom and 2 brothers and I, we had a full-on belly laugh in the family room about something my dad had said. And if you would have told me 96 hours after my father passed away, I'd be laughing hard with like tears coming out of my eyes instead of just crying tears, no way I would have believed you. I mean, we were devastated, right? But the ability to make jokes and to console each other at that moment, I mean, I was doing it 15 minutes after. I was at the Kolkata Chai Company in New York City with my friend Raman Sehgal, and I got the call from my mom's phone. It was our neighbor, Mary Ann, and she was crying. And she gave me the news. I had no idea what she was about to say because I just talked to my parents the night before. Good little Asian boy arrived in New York City, and I called them on the way in, and that was the last conversation I would ever have with my dad. Who would ever have known that? Before we left, I was in Cincinnati 12 days before. I had just opened for Hassan Minhaj. This is the last night my dad got to see me ever. I'm standing in front of 3,000 people opening for Hassan Minhaj. That was the last night. I was on the stage, my son came out before, and that was the last night. God smiled down and go, this is the last night the Satyal lineage will have together as this huge moment in time. It was unbelievable. So I'm in the Uber with Raman, and he's, one of my best friends of all time. He worked at P&G with me as well, and on the IT side. And we're in the Uber, and he's looking up flights already. He's like, we got to get you to Cincinnati. He's like, I found a Frontier flight. And I go, I don't want to meet my dad already. It's a Frontier flight. It's going to crash. Okay. He goes, it's been 15 minutes. You really really? You're cracking a joke? And it was just like this moment of like levity because he's like, that's what they do. It's a defense mechanism, but it's also just like adjusting to this new reality and realizing that, again, your values are tested at that moment. Are you still going to make jokes at that moment? And my dad would have loved nothing more. He loved the fact that we could always make a joke at the most inappropriate times. Purpose to be the best comedian I can be. That's what I feel like comedians do is to help people through these times. So these are some things to think through. Again, this is a lot to kind of go through, and I can send it to you, but some things to think about: your mission, your vision, your purpose, or what can I just not help but do? What am I compelled to do? That's a big word. What am I compelled to do? I'm compelled to write. I write every day. I feel weird if I don't write. I've thought about going to this 10-day yoga silent retreats. People are like, could you really not talk for 10 days? I go, I could not talk. I don't think I could not write. That would be very difficult for me. And I understand that you put the pen down, you probably get deeper and deeper thoughts, and your material would be much better, a week and a half later. But it would be very hard for me to not write anything down. What do I always end up talking about? Some people will come back to the same topics over and over, and that can be a good thing. That's their passion. Which battle do I want to fight? What do I want to shake the planet and just yell at everybody? What do I wish people would just realize? If I didn't do my current job, which profession would I like to attempt? That's part of the Proust questionnaire. Marcel Proust had these questions, which was, if you didn't do your current job, which job would you like to do? And which job would you not like to do? What sounds like absolute hell to you? Anyone yell it out? Like, what would you not want to do? Programming. Would not want to be a programmer. I hope that's not your job. What is my gift? Some people just have a gift. They're just good at something. I didn't realize that talking in front of people was that hard for people. I just was naturally like, what's hard about that? Or, I would come in every Monday morning with all the NFL scores. I would come in every January 2nd or 3rd we went back to school. I'd have the entire MTV video countdown list written down from 100 to 1. And people are like, why didn't you become like a music journalist or a comedian or something? Why are you becoming an engineer? I didn't realize, I thought what I was into, everybody was into. Because what's easy for you think is easy. Well, no, it's easy for you, but it's hard for other people. I cannot sing. I'm a really terrible singer. I love doing karaoke, but I'm a terrible singer. I remember I went to a Bollywood instructional class. I can dance, I got some moves, but I was just like, I don't have any kinesiology. Howard Gardner talked about the 9 different kinds of intelligence. And there's athletic, and there's musical, and there's engineering, science, to be able to think about STEM. And I realized they're like, okay, move your hips. And I was like, where are my hips? And I was like, oh, they're here. And they're like, no, those are your thighs. I'm like, well, where? And I was like, I felt what it was like to be stupid. I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to be stupid. Like when someone's telling you something, everybody else is able to do it. I'm like, can't you do long division? It's so easy. Now I'm like, oh, this is like when you can't do something. This is what it feels like. I'm like, learned that at the age of 45 or whatever it was. And actually one more thing on this before I leave that, actually, I think this is important. I have a short fuse sometimes. I have a little bit of an anger issue. And at the airport and you're running behind and, you're talking to Delta and the rep is just not helping you at all. Times where I've used anger, it's blown up in my face. And it's been really embarrassing and I shouldn't have been like that and I shouldn't have done that. But there are times where I've used my wit and my charm. Those are my gifts, okay? Just use your gift. Don't yell. I haven't yelled at the person, but I was like, like rolling my eyes and breathing heavy. I'm gonna miss this flight. It's like, they're not gonna do it for you now because you're being a jerk, okay? But I've done this thing before where I've gone to the counter and I've looked at the rep and I said, okay, there's a long line here. Why don't you do something? Why don't you look down at the computer and you can just like zone out for 30 seconds, pretend like you're helping me and you can just take a little bit of a break. And they've done that before. And they'll come back and they're like, thank you for that. I'm like, you're welcome. So now let's start, right? And so it's like, looks like they're working, they're getting something out of it, and then maybe they'll help you get on the flight or something like that. But if nothing else, they'll probably be much more likely to help you if you're using your gifts of your wit or your charm or whatever else and not yelling and screaming at the person, because that is probably not going to get you very far anyway. What do I want to do with my life? I'll put that in italics because I said that is a difficult thing to know. Now, what I would like you to think through, so here's some adjectives that I use to describe myself. You can jot them down anywhere in the exercises, or actually there's a section called words. For me, a word that defines me is witty. I've never been called not witty. I don't think everyone in the world finds me funny. I think most people do. Not everybody does. But no one's ever been like, yeah, but you're not witty. I think everyone concedes that. Okay, you're not my cup of tea, but you're pretty witty. I'm not wacky, though. I don't have like a wacky sense of humor. I'm not like a crazy, wild and crazy guy like I claim to be, apparently. I'm clean. I work clean. Got a clean head. Nothing on my face. No facial hair. No glasses. I'm clean. Dressed clean. And I'm smart. I think that's kind of hard to deny. I'm all those things. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm rarely the smartest person in the room, but I'm smart. What are the things that come to mind for you where you go, yeah, that's something for me. I actually sent out a persona email before I went full time into this, probably 20 years ago. And I asked people this question. I sent a whole thing of what comes to mind when you think of me. And yeah, 10% of it was not very flattering. Some of it was like, ooh, ouch, okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, you're kind of obnoxious, you're a little bit annoying. It was like, okay, all right, I asked, So, but most of it was positive, that was good. But then I thought of, those were adjectives and then these were nouns. I felt like these nouns resonated with me. I felt like I'm a whirlwind. I'm sort of all over the place. You've seen me run around all week. That is how I am, even around the house. A zeitgeist, I feel like I'm fairly tied into the zeitgeist. I like keeping up with what's happening. I think that's fun to just be in the stream of information, whatever it is. And then a mosaic, I guess I have a lot of different interests of, everything from left to right brain and all of that. So, any of those words, if they apply to you or for any other words that come to mind, maybe just jot them down there.